Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Ijima Fab. So today I'll be taking you on how to make this boo gown. So I'll be working with these two fabrics. So this is a bridal satin and this is the Ankara fabric. So I have about 4 yards here. So I'm going to set this aside now and we're going to start by taking the length of the gown I'm working with. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric. I folded into two first and also into two again. So making it into four. So this is the open end and this is the folded end. So the length I'm working with is 58 inches plus 2 inches seam allowance, which is 60 inches. So I have 62 inches in total here. So this is going to take care of all the joining I'll be making. So the next thing to do now is to place the shoulder measurement. So I'm going to use here as the shoulder. This is going to serve as my shoulder. This is a cut together sleeve, but I want to make a shoulder slant. So this is optional. So you can decide not to make a shoulder slant and you can decide also to make a shoulder slant. But for me, I want to make a shoulder slant because I want to work on the panels separately. So this is going to serve as the shoulder. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to impute the shoulder, half of the shoulder measurement, and also mark my sleeve length. So half of the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. So I'm just going to indicate it here as a guide. Then the sleeve length I want to make use of is 12 inches, and I'll be needing about 1 or 1.5 inches for folding of the sleeve. So I'm going to add about 1.5 inches to the 12 inches. So that will make it 13.5 inches. So that places me here, 13.5 inches. So at this point here, I'm going to mark the neck width. So I want to make use of 4 inches. So because I want this to have a shoulder slant, so this is totally optional. I'm going to come in here and I'll mark 1 inch at this point here. So I'm going to connect from here to this 4 inches neck width. So this is the shoulder slant which I'll be cutting off. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to impute the neck depth. So the neck depth of the back I want to make use of is 2 inches. So I'm going to mark my 2 inches here. And the neck depth that I want to make use of for the front would be 9 inches. So 9 inches places me here. So I mark 9 inches here. So by the time I'm done joining the shoulders by half inch, at least it will go up a bit with about half of an inch. So if you want yours to still come lower than 9 inches, you can do that as well. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect. So I'm going to connect the back. So for the front neckline, it's going to be a V. So I'm going to draw a slanting line this way. So I'm done with the neckline. The next thing now is to impute the sleeve opening. So I'm going to consider the fact that I'm going to be joining the shoulder. So I need half inch here at the top part to join the shoulders together, and I need about 1 inch when I'm joining the sides together. So that's 1.5 inches. So I'm going to make this to be 14 inches in total. So I want this to be free because this is for an elderly person. So this is where the 14 inches places me. So from this shoulder slant this way, I took 14 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to extend this line down here to this 14 inches. So now I'm going to mark the horizontal measurement. So because this is a bubu and the bubu is a free gown, I'm going to use the biggest circumference. So the biggest circumference is her hip, which is 48 inches. So I'm going to be using the hip measurement to mark the bust all the way down. So if you want yours to be a bit fitted at the bust area here, you can as well use the bust measurement to mark here. Then when you get to the hip, you use the hip circumference for the hip and down the gown. Since the hip circumference is the biggest part, I'll be making use of the hip circumference to mark this. So quarter of the hip circumference will place me at 12 inches. So I'm going to use this 14 inches as a guide. So I'm going to place my tape this way. So this is 12 inches, and I'll be adding about 4.5 inches. So that will give me 16.5 inches. So with the 4.5 inches, my sewing allowance is inclusive. So this is 16.5 inches. So it places me here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to continue imputing this 16.5 inches all through. So I'm going to come this way and place this like this. So this is for the sleeve. To get our curve, we're going to go this way. Now keep marking this 16.5 inches all through. So we have this all set. The next thing now is to cut this out. So remember I folded into four. So I'm cutting the front and the back together. And to cut this out, I'll first of all cut out with the back neckline before I'll separate it to cut out the front neckline. So this is how it looks like after cutting. The next thing I'll be doing now, like I said before, is to separate this. So I'm going to take the back away from here and work on the front panel. So this is the front panel. The next thing we're going to do now is to modify this front panel. So remember on the thumbnail we have an attachment of another fabric here. So now to achieve this, I'm going to mark about 2 inches here. So I'm going to mark 2 inches all the way downwards. After marking the 2 inches, I'm going to connect with a line. So while marking the 2 inches, I'm going to stop here. So remember this is the 9 inches length which we came down for the front neck. So I'm going to mark the 2 inches at this point here and stop here. So I'm going to connect the 2 inches this way. So I stopped at this 9 inches. So the next thing to do now is to connect from here all the way to this neckline. So I'm going to connect this 2 inches this way. So this is now the new neckline. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut this off all the way down to the end. So this is our front panel after cutting this out. So the next thing I will want to do now is to cut out the pocket. So I would like to attach the pocket on the front panel first before I'll attach the shoulders together. So for the pocket, I want it to be about 10 inches in length. So I have like 10 inches here. And the width will also be, I'm going to make use of 8 inches, but I'm going to cut 9 inches. So by the time I'm done sewing both ends, I'll be left with 8 inches. So I'm going to make it 4.5 inches. So when you open up, it will be 9 inches. So I'm going to mark 4.5 inches. So automatically, it's going to be 10 inches in length and 9 inches in width. So I'm going to mark 4.5 inches to get me to 9 inches. Next, the marking. And the next thing now is to cut this out. So I'm cutting the two pockets together. So I have both pockets here, and I also went ahead to cut this strap, black strap on the pocket. So this is going to be at the top of the pocket this way. So what I'm going to do now is to take the right side, facing the wrong side of the Ankara fabric. I'm going to stitch it with about quarter of an inch. After doing that, I'll turn it to the right side. So after turning to the right side, I'll fold here also with about quarter of an inch, then mark it down. So I'm done attaching the black strap on the pocket. So the next thing I went ahead to also do is to use my pressing iron to fold the three sides So I folded this side inward so as to enable me attach it on the gown easily. So to attach the pocket, I'm going to mark 20 inches downward. So I'll be placing my tape this way at the beginning of the neckline and mark 20 inches. So I have 20 inches here. So I'm also putting into consideration the ½ inch sewing allowance at the shoulder. So I'm going to place the pocket here. So it's going to be where this 20 inches stops. So the next thing to do is also determine how or where you want to place your pocket. So from the thumbnail, the pocket is very close to the front, to the center front. So I'll be placing my pocket close to the center front. I'm going to go away by about 1 inch. So also remember that I'm still going to attach my front strip here, which will take about ½ inch. So I'll be having like ½ inch left when I'm done sewing. So this is okay. You can also decide to take it this way. Just feel free and place your pocket wherever you want it to be. So I'm going to do that here, about 1 inch away from the center front. So after placing it where I want it to be, the next thing I'm going to do now is to go sew it up at the three sides. So I'll sew this way, and this way. I'll also repeat the same process on the other panel. So after sewing the pocket for both sides, this is how they look like. So this is how the front panel looks like for both sides. So this is the left and the right side. The next thing I'll be doing right now is to attach the back to the front panel. I'll be placing them right sides facing each other. So I'm going to join the shoulders with ½ inch. So this is the back panel. So what I'm going to do right now is to place the front on top of the back this way. So this is one of the front panels. I'm going to place it this way, making sure that the neckline touch each other. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going to sew up with ½ inch. I'll repeat the same thing to this other side. So I'm done joining them at the shoulder here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to neatly finish up my sleeve opening. I'll be folding in twice. Then after doing that, I'm going to close up the sides of the gown. So I've gone ahead to mark my sewing allowance, which is 1 inch. So I'll do that on this side and the other side of the gown. So after joining the front and the back panels together, this is how it looks like. So the next thing is to cut out the front strap that is going to replace what I cut out. So I'm going to place this shoulder to shoulder. So this is the center back. I've gone ahead to notch the center back. So I'm going to take the measurement all the way like this, and I'll continue to the front neckline all the way to the end of the gown. So whatever I have, I'm going to multiply by 2 because we're actually going to place it round the gown from the hem to the neckline to the other part of the gown. So after measuring, I have 65 inches for one side, so meaning that both sides will have to give me 130 inches. So the strap I'm going to cut is going to be 130 inches. So I'm going to be adding about 2 inches just to be on the safe side. So the width I'm going to cut is going to be 3 inches wide. So you know we took out 2 inches from here on fold, so that's 4 inches. So I'm going to also replace this by cutting on fold. I'm going to cut out 3 inches. So the 3 inches is going to take care of the sewing allowances and shortage. So I have my strap here. I went ahead to cut about 2.5 of the length because this comes by 60. So I have to join them to make up for the length I want to make use of. And I also went ahead to add my feasible interfacing. So this is for stability. Also, I have 6 inches width here. So by the time I fold into two this way, it will be giving me 3 inches. So this is going to take care of the shortage and the sewing allowance. So to attach this on the gown, there are different ways you can attach this to the gown. So before fixing the front strap, I'm going to make 2 markings that will guide me to fix my strap. So remember I took 9 inches as my as the front neck depth. So I'm going to mark the 9 inches. So instead of marking 9 inches, I'll be marking 8.5 inches here because I've already taken half inch here while I was sewing. So I have my 8.5 inches around here. So the next marking I will be making also will be where the slit is going to stop. So I'm going to mark 19 inches from the hem of the gown. So this is my 19 inches here. So I'm also taking into consideration the folding allowance. So by the time I'm done, I should be having about 17.5 inches as my slit allowance. So for my strap, I already have my marking here. I made use of my iron to make a crease to serve as a guide. So this is going to be where I will start from. So I'm going to place it at the midpoint of the back this way. So the midpoint of the back, which I already notched with this, I'm going to place it like this gently. So I'm going to keep going round until I get to this 8.5 inches. So once I get to this point, I'm going to mark it on the strap. So this is where my 8.5 inches is. So I'm going to keep going down. I'll continue the same thing until I get to where my slit is supposed to stop. This is where the slit is supposed to stop. So I'm going to mark it here. So you can also gently notch this. So I'm going to mark it this way. I'll do the same thing to this side. So this is going to serve as a guide. So after marking this on this part of the strap, I'll repeat the same thing on the other part of the strap. So I'm going to also mark the 8.5 inches and also mark the slit, where the slit is going to stop. So for the strap, I made some markings on it. So I have here where I did not make any marking. I have this line here, this horizontal line. So this line is where the neckline stops. Then I also went ahead to mark a vertical line, dividing this strap into two. I'll be sewing down on this line and I'm going to stop all the way here. So I have another horizontal line here. So this is where the slit is going to stop, and I have here open. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take this to the machine. I'm going to sew from this point all the way and stop here. So I'm done sewing up from this point here all the way to this point. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to turn this around. So I'm going to go this way, just like this, taking this way. So it will automatically turn and divide it into two. So I'm going to go over again. So I'm going to go back this way. So this was how it was. So I'm going to open it up again. So I'm going to take this way, then folding this like this. So I automatically have this. So this is how it will look like, and this is how the end of it would look like. So this is where I'll be attaching to the down part of the gown. So the next thing now is for me to attach this to the gown, and I'll be showing you how I'm going to do this. So having gotten this, the next thing now is to attach it. So I'll be attaching this right side of this facing the right side of the center back. So the notch part of this, or the midpoint of this, and the midpoint of the center back must align. So I'm going to do this on the right side of my gown. So this is the midpoint of this and the midpoint here, matching this way. So I'm going to start from here all the way to this front, and I'll continue till I get to the end of the gown this way. So once I'm done with this side, I'll continue the same thing all the way to the end of this side. So after sewing, this is how the gown is looking like. So for the rough edges inside, I'll be using the interlocking machine to finish up the rough edges. So this is how the hem of the gown looks like. So at the end here, I'll be trimming off the gown, and once I'm done trimming off, I'll fold with my hemming allowance. Because this gown has slits, while making yours, you can decide to shape the end of your gown. So I made use of the hip circumference for both the hip and the down part of the gown. You could as well take in some allowances so to give it some shape, and also for the pocket. If you're working with someone that is not so tall, you can always use 18 inches. So from the shoulder to 18 inches. So you can start your pocket from around 18 inches. So guys, we've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video will be helpful to someone out there. Please like, share and subscribe.